The crystal chandelier above Rochelle Adams' head seemed to spin as she stood at the practice altar, her red silk rehearsal dress clinging to her trembling body. 500 empty chairs stretched before her in the grand ballroom of the Meridian Hotel, each one representing a guest who would witness her marriage tomorrow. Each one a stranger. Each one expecting a performance. "Rochelle, darling, please smile," Christopher Whitmore said through clenched teeth, his hand gripping her elbow just a bit too tight. "The photographer needs to capture our joy." Joy. The word tasted like metal in her mouth. She couldn't remember the last time she'd felt actual joy. 3 months ago, when Christopher proposed with a 15-carat diamond ring at a restaurant where dinner cost more than most people's monthly rent. 6 months ago, when they first met at a charity gala where she'd been volunteering. Maybe. But that felt like someone else's memory now, like watching a movie about a different woman. I need air," Rochelle whispered, her chest tightening. "We're almost done with the rehearsal," Christopher replied, not looking at her. He was studying the seating chart with the wedding planner, a severe woman named Patricia who had opinions about everything from the shade of ivory on the napkins to the exact angle of the flower arrangements. "Christopher, I can't breathe." "You're fine. It's just nerves. Every bride gets nervous." But Rochelle wasn't fine. Her vision blurred at the edges. The room tilted sideways. She pulled away from Christopher's grip, stumbling backward in her heels. The wedding planner gasped. Christopher's mother, Evelyn Whitmore, stood up from her seat in the front row, her face a mask of concern that didn't quite reach her calculating eyes. "Rochelle?" Christopher reached for her. She ran. Her heels clicked against the marble floor as she fled down the hallway, past startled hotel staff, past the elaborate floral displays that cost more than a car. She didn't know where she was going. She just knew she had to get away from the chandelier, the chairs, the expectation, the suffocating weight of a life she'd agreed to but never truly wanted. She pushed through a door marked "Staff Only," and found herself in a dimly lit hallway that smelled of cleaning supplies and industrial soap. Her breathing came in sharp gasps. Black spots danced in her vision. She was having a panic attack, and she was having it in a janitor's hallway while wearing a dress that cost $8,000. The absurdity of it would have made her laugh if she could breathe. She sank to the floor, her back against the cool wall, and tried to remember the breathing exercises her therapist had taught her. In for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts. Out for 4 counts. But her lungs wouldn't cooperate. Her chest felt like someone had wrapped steel bands around it. Miss, are you okay?" A voice, deep and gentle, cut through her panic. Rochelle looked up to see a man in a green maintenance uniform crouching in front of her. He had kind eyes, the color of warm honey, and he held a bottle of water. "Here," he said, opening the bottle and offering it to her. "Small sips. You're okay. You're safe." Rochelle took the bottle with shaking hands and sipped. The cool water helped. The man didn't touch her, didn't crowd her, just stayed at a respectful distance and spoke in that calm, steady voice. "That's good. Keep breathing. In through your nose, out through your mouth. You're doing great." Slowly, painfully, the panic receded. Rochelle's vision cleared. She could breathe again. She looked at the man properly for the first time. He was perhaps in his early 30s, with dark brown skin and a gentle smile. His name tag read Andre Johnson. "Thank you," Rochelle managed, her voice hoarse. "No problem. Happens more than you'd think in hotels. Big events, lots of pressure." He sat down on the floor across from her, giving her space. "You're the bride, right? From the rehearsal?" Rochelle nodded, suddenly ashamed. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't be back here." "It's okay. Better here than passing out in front of all those people." He studied her with those kind eyes. "You want to talk about it?" Did she? She didn't even know this man. But something about his gentle presence, the lack of judgment in his expression, made her feel safe in a way she hadn't felt in months. "I don't know if I can marry him," Rochelle heard herself say. The words hung in the air between them, terrible and true. Andre didn't gasp or lecture. He just nodded slowly. "That's a pretty important thing to know the night before your wedding." I know it's crazy. He's perfect on paper. Christopher Whitmore. He's brilliant, successful, generous. He donates millions to charity. He treats me like a princess. But," Andre prompted gently. "But I feel like I'm drowning," Rochelle whispered. "Like I'm playing a role in someone else's life. Like I'm not me anymore. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense," Andre said. "Sometimes the life that looks perfect from the outside feels like a prison from the inside." Rochelle felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "My mother would be so disappointed in me. She came from nothing. She worked 3 jobs to put me through college. Christopher is everything she dreamed I'd find. Security. Status. A life she never had. But is he what you dreamed you'd find? The question hung in the air, simple and devastating. Before Rochelle could answer, the door burst open. Christopher stood there, his face flushed with anger and concern. Behind him, the wedding planner and Christopher's mother peered into the hallway. There you are. We've been looking everywhere. Christopher's eyes landed on Andre, and his expression hardened. What's going on here? Andre stood smoothly, maintaining his professional demeanor. The lady wasn't feeling well, sir. I was just making sure she was okay. I'll take care of my fiancée, thank you. Christopher reached down and pulled Rochelle to her feet, his grip firm. Come on, darling. We need to finish the rehearsal. Christopher, I don't think I can. Of course you can. It's just cold feet. Every bride gets them. He was already guiding her toward the door, one arm around her waist. Thank you for your help, he said dismissively to Andre without looking at him. Rochelle glanced back at Andre as Christopher led her away. The janitor met her eyes, and in that moment, something passed between them. Understanding. Compassion. A recognition of truth. Then the door swung shut, and she was back in the bright lights of the hotel proper, being steered back toward the ballroom, back toward the chandelier and the chairs and the life she'd agreed to. But something had shifted. In that quiet hallway, with a kind stranger who asked the right questions, Rochelle had admitted the truth out loud for the first time. She didn't want to marry Christopher Whitmore. The question was, did she have the courage to do something about it? Have you ever felt trapped in a life that looked perfect from the outside but felt empty inside? Would you have the courage to walk away? Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me what you would do in Rochelle's situation. Your thoughts matter to this community. Rochelle barely slept that night. She lay in the king-sized bed in Christopher's penthouse, staring at the ceiling, replaying the panic attack over and over. Christopher had insisted she stay at his place instead of her own apartment, saying he wanted to take care of her. But taking care of her meant his housekeeper bringing her chamomile tea and his mother sitting by the bed, talking about wedding day jitters as if Rochelle's fear was nothing more than a charming bridal tradition. Every Whitmore bride gets nervous, Evelyn had said, patting Rochelle's hand with her perfectly manicured fingers. I nearly fainted at my own wedding. But look how well everything turned out. Rochelle had nodded and smiled and played the role expected of her. But inside she was still in that hallway, still feeling like she couldn't breathe. At 3 a.m, she gave up on sleep. She slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Christopher in the guest room where he'd agreed to sleep separately, honoring the tradition of not seeing the bride before the wedding. She pulled on jeans and a blue sweater, grabbed her purse and left the penthouse. The doorman looked surprised to see her leaving at such an hour but didn't question her. That was the thing about being engaged to Christopher Whitmore. People didn't question. They just obeyed. Rochelle found herself walking through the empty city streets, the cool night air filling her lungs. She walked without direction, just moving, feeling her body remember how to exist without performance or expectation. And somehow, her feet carried her back to the Meridian Hotel. The lobby was quiet at this hour, just a night clerk reading behind the desk. Rochelle slipped past without being noticed and found herself in that same staff hallway from earlier. She wasn't sure what she was looking for until she heard the soft sound of music coming from an open supply closet. Andre was there, wiping down shelves while listening to something classical on a small radio. He looked up when her shadow fell across the doorway, and his face registered surprise, then concern. Couldn't sleep? He asked, turning down the music. I couldn't stop thinking, Rochelle admitted. About what you asked me. Andre gestured to an overturned bucket. Want to sit? It was absurd. She was sitting on a bucket in a janitor's closet at 3 a.m, the night before her wedding to a billionaire. But somehow, it felt more real than anything else in her life right now. Tell me about him, Andre said, continuing to organize supplies. Your fiancé. What's he really like? Rochelle considered the question. He's intelligent. Driven. He built his software company from nothing and sold it for billions before he was 30. He's generous with his money. He gives to causes he believes in. He wants to change the world. That's what he does, Andre observed. But who is he? The distinction stopped Rochelle cold. I don't know, she said slowly. We've been together for a year, but I don't really know who he is. We go to galas and fundraisers. We have dinner at expensive restaurants. We take pictures for his social media. But I don't know what makes him laugh, really laugh. I don't know what he's afraid of. I don't know what he dreams about. And does he know those things about you? No. The admission hurt. He knows the version of me that fits into his world. Rochelle Adams, the art teacher who volunteers at charity events. The girl with a good heart and a pretty face who'll look perfect in his family photos. But he doesn't know about the real me. Who's the real you? Andre asked, sitting down on another bucket across from her. Rochelle thought about it. I grew up in a small apartment with my mom. My dad left when I was 3. Mom worked constantly, but we were still always behind on bills. I learned to be grateful for anything, to not ask for too much, to make myself small and easy. When I got a scholarship to art school, I thought my life would change. And it did, but not the way I expected. How so? I discovered I was good at making art that rich people wanted to buy. Safe art. Pretty art. Art that matched their sofas. Rochelle laughed bitterly. I stopped making the art that mattered to me and started making the art that paid rent. And then I met Christopher at a charity event, and suddenly I had access to a world I'd only seen in magazines. My mother was so proud. All her sacrifice had paid off. Her daughter was going to marry a billionaire. But you're not happy, Andre said. It wasn't a question. I'm grateful, Rochelle corrected. There's a difference. Is there? Andre stood and pulled out a worn notebook from his locker. Can I show you something? He opened the notebook and Rochelle saw pages filled with handwriting. Notes, thoughts, sketches of ideas. I'm taking online classes, Andre explained. Getting my degree in social work. My mom struggled with addiction when I was growing up. Lost her job, lost our apartment, lost herself. The system failed her because no one saw her as a person, just as a problem. I want to help people the way I wished someone had helped her. That's beautiful, Rochelle said, meaning it. It's going to take me 3 more years to finish my degree while working full-time. I live in a studio apartment with furniture from thrift stores. I eat ramen more often than I'd like. But I wake up every morning knowing I'm building towards something that matters to me. He looked at her directly. Can you say the same? The question struck deep. Rochelle thought about her mornings in Christopher's penthouse, drinking coffee that cost more per cup than Andre probably spent on groceries in a week, staring out at a view of the city she barely saw anymore. No, she whispered. I can't. Then why are you marrying him? Because he's good to me. Because my mother will be secure. Because walking away would be ungrateful and foolish and what? And terrifying. Rochelle felt tears building again. What if I walk away and regret it? What if I'm throwing away the best thing that will ever happen to me? What if I'm just being selfish and stupid? Andre was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. My mom used to say that comfort and happiness aren't the same thing. You can be comfortable in a cage, but that doesn't mean you should stay there. He paused. But I'm just a janitor. What do I know about your life? You're not just a janitor, Rochelle said firmly. You're someone who listens. Someone who asks real questions. Someone who sees me. She looked at her hands, at the massive engagement ring that suddenly felt like a weight. Christopher's never asked me what I want. Not really. He tells me what I need, what will make me happy, what's best for us. And I let him because it's easier than figuring it out myself. What do you want? Andre asked. Rochelle opened her mouth, then closed it. She didn't know. She'd spent so long being what other people needed that she'd lost track of her own desires. I don't know, she admitted. But I know this feeling in my chest, this constant anxiety, isn't right. I know that happiness shouldn't feel like drowning. They sat in silence for a while, the only sound the soft classical music from Andre's radio. Rochelle felt something loosening in her chest, like a knot slowly untying. Thank you, she said finally. For listening. For not judging. Everyone deserves to be heard, Andre said simply. Everyone deserves to be seen as they really are, not as who people need them to be. Rochelle looked at her phone. It was nearly 5 in the morning. In a few hours, an army of stylists would arrive at the penthouse to begin transforming her into a bride. The ceremony was at 6 that evening. She had 13 hours left to decide the rest of her life. I should go, she said, standing. Will you be okay? Andre asked, genuine concern in his eyes. I don't know. But thank you for giving me a place to think clearly. As Rochelle walked back through the empty hotel, something had shifted. The question Andre asked echoed in her mind. What do you want? She had 13 hours to find the answer. The penthouse was chaos when Rochelle returned at 6 in the morning. Christopher was awake, pacing the living room in his robe, phone pressed to his ear. When he saw her, relief and anger flashed across his face in equal measure. I'll call you back, he said into the phone, then turned to Rochelle. Where have you been? I've been worried sick. I was about to call the police. I went for a walk. I needed to clear my head. At 3 in the morning? Alone. Christopher crossed the room and gripped her shoulders. Rochelle, you can't do things like that. What if something had happened to you? What if someone recognized you and sold the story to the press? Do you know how that would look? There it was. Not concern for her safety but concern for appearances. I'm fine, Rochelle said, pulling away gently. I just needed air. Christopher studied her face, then softened his expression. I know yesterday was overwhelming. I should have been more attentive to what you needed. But today is going to be perfect, I promise. Everything is arranged. All you need to do is relax and let people take care of you. Before Rochelle could respond, the doorbell rang. The styling team had arrived. Within minutes, the penthouse was transformed into a salon. Hair stylists, makeup artists, the dress designer, the wedding planner, photographers capturing every moment. Rochelle was seated in a chair and the transformation began. Her mother arrived an hour later, tears already streaming down her face. My baby girl, Donna Adams said, squeezing Rochelle's hand. Marrying a Whitmore. I can't believe it. Your father would be so proud if he could see you now. Rochelle doubted that. Her father had left because he couldn't handle the pressure of providing for a family. He'd chosen escape over responsibility. Was she doing the same thing by considering walking away? Mom, can we talk privately? Rochelle asked. Donna's smile faltered slightly. Of course, baby. She shooed the stylists away, and they retreated to the bedroom. What's wrong? Donna asked immediately. Please tell me you're not having second thoughts. What if I am? The words came out before Rochelle could stop them. Her mother's face went pale. Rochelle Adams, you listen to me. I didn't work myself to the bone for 20 years so you could throw away the opportunity of a lifetime. Christopher Whitmore is a good man. He loves you. He can give you everything. But what if I don't love him? The question hung between them like a bomb waiting to explode. Donna sat down heavily on the bed. Love. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Baby, love doesn't pay bills. Love doesn't put food on the table. Love doesn't give you security. I loved your father, and where did that get me? Working 3 jobs and eating cereal for dinner so you could have a better life. I know, Mom. I know what you sacrificed. Do you? Donna's eyes were fierce. Do you really? Because from where I'm sitting, you're about to throw away a chance that girls like us never get. You're about to spit in the face of every struggle we went through. Rochelle felt like she was being torn in two. On one side, her mother's dreams, her mother's sacrifices, her mother's hopes. On the other, the echo of Andre's question. What do you want? I'm scared, Rochelle whispered. I'm scared I'm making a mistake either way. Donna's face softened slightly. She pulled Rochelle into a hug. Every bride is scared. But sometimes you have to choose security over butterflies. Sometimes you have to be smart instead of romantic. Christopher can give you a life where you never have to worry about money, never have to struggle, never have to make the choices I had to make. But will I be happy? Happiness is a luxury, baby. Security is survival. The stylist knocked on the door, calling them back. The moment was over. Rochelle let herself be led back to the chair, let them continue painting her into someone she barely recognized. Her best friend Tamara arrived around noon with the bridesmaid dresses. Tamara took one look at Rochelle's face and pulled her aside while the other bridesmaids were distracted with champagne. Spill, Tamara said. You look like you're about to throw up. Rochelle told her everything. The panic attack. Andre. The conversation with her mother. The crushing weight of everyone's expectations. Tamara listened without interrupting, then pulled Rochelle into a tight hug. Listen to me. I love you. I've loved you since we met in college when you shared your last granola bar with me. I've watched you build yourself up from nothing. And I'm going to tell you something your mother won't. What? It's your life. Not hers. Not Christopher's. Not mine. Yours. And if you marry this man while feeling the way you feel, you're going to wake up in 5 years and hate yourself. Maybe you'll stay. Maybe you'll have kids and a beautiful house and designer clothes and everyone will think you have it all. But you'll know the truth. You'll know you chose safety over yourself. But what if I'm wrong? What if I walk away and regret it? Then at least you'll regret a choice you made for yourself, not a choice you made for everyone else. Tamara squeezed her hands. I can't tell you what to do. But I can tell you this. That janitor, the one who listened to you? He asked you in 2 hours what Christopher hasn't asked in a year. That should tell you something. Before Rochelle could respond, Christopher appeared in the doorway. Ladies, I hate to interrupt, but can I steal my bride for a moment? Tamara shot Rochelle a meaningful look, then left them alone. Christopher closed the door and pulled a velvet box from his pocket. I wanted to give you this before the ceremony. It was my grandmother's. He opened the box to reveal a stunning sapphire necklace. Something blue. It was beautiful. It was priceless. And Rochelle felt nothing. Christopher, I need to ask you something. Of course, darling. Why do you want to marry me? He looked surprised by the question. Because you're perfect. You're beautiful, intelligent, kind. You fit perfectly into my life. You make me look good. Make me look good. The phrase hung in the air. But do you love me? Rochelle pressed. The real me, not the version that fits your life? Christopher smiled indulgently. Of course I love you. Why else would I be marrying you? You're everything I've been looking for. He fastened the necklace around her neck. Now no more doubt. In 6 hours, you'll be Mrs. Christopher Whitmore, and all this anxiety will seem silly. He kissed her forehead and left, completely unaware that he'd answered every question she'd been afraid to ask. She didn't fit his life. She made his life fit. There was a difference. Rochelle looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back was flawless. Perfect makeup, perfect hair, draped in a designer robe with a sapphire necklace worth more than her mother's house. She looked like a princess from a fairy tale. But fairy tales, Rochelle was realizing, sometimes got the ending wrong. The next 3 weeks were supposed to be Rochelle's honeymoon period. Instead, they were the strangest weeks of her life. She went through with the wedding ceremony. Or rather, she stood at the altar, said the words, and let it happen around her. She felt disconnected from her body, watching herself from somewhere far away as Christopher slipped the ring on her finger, as they kissed for the photos, as they danced their first dance to a song his mother had chosen. But she never signed the marriage license. The wedding planner had brought it to her during the reception, and Rochelle had said she needed to fix her makeup first. Then there was the cake cutting, then the toasts, then the send-off. By the time someone remembered the paperwork, it was late and Christopher said they'd sign it after the honeymoon. Except Rochelle told him she couldn't go on the honeymoon. She'd come down with severe food poisoning, the doctor confirmed it, she was so sorry but she couldn't possibly fly to Bali feeling like this. Christopher was frustrated but understanding. He went with his best friend instead, turning it into a guy's trip. And Rochelle, supposedly recovering in the penthouse, started taking long walks every evening to the Meridian Hotel. She told herself she was just getting air. Exploring the city. Clearing her head. But she knew the truth. She was looking for Andre. The first time she went back, she didn't find him. A different janitor was working the night shift. She felt foolish and went home. But the next night, she tried again and there he was, replacing a light bulb in one of the conference rooms. Hey, she said from the doorway. Andre turned, surprised. You're married now. Congratulations. Not exactly. Rochelle held up her left hand, ringless. She'd stopped wearing the massive engagement ring the day after the ceremony. Long story. Can we talk? They fell into a pattern. Every evening, Rochelle would walk to the hotel. Sometimes Andre was on break and they'd sit in the staff lounge, drinking coffee from the machine that was always slightly burnt. Sometimes she'd follow him on his rounds, talking while he worked. They talked about everything. Andre told her about growing up with a single mother who struggled but loved him fiercely. About watching her battle addiction, about the social workers who helped and the ones who didn't, about her death from an overdose when he was 22. About his determination to help people the way he wished someone had helped her. Rochelle told him about her childhood dreams of being an artist, about the paintings she used to create before she learned to paint for money, about her father who left and her mother who stayed and sacrificed and never let her forget it. About the guilt that colored every decision she made. I don't even know what I want anymore, Rochelle admitted one night, sitting on a bench in the hotel's garden courtyard. I've spent so long wanting what other people need me to want. Then maybe it's time to figure it out, Andre suggested. What did you love to do before anyone had expectations of you? Paint. But not the stuff I sell. I used to paint these wild, messy pieces full of emotion and color. My professors hated them. Said they were unmarketable. So I learned to paint what sold. Do you still have those paintings? The wild ones. Some. In a storage unit. I haven't looked at them in years. Want to go get them? Andre asked. Now. It's 11 at night. He grinned. Storage units are open 24/7. I got tomorrow off. We could look at them if you want. It was the most spontaneous thing Rochelle had done in years. They took a rideshare to the storage facility across town. Rochelle hadn't been there since she moved in with Christopher. She'd almost forgotten what she'd packed away. The unit was full of remnants of her old life. Cheap furniture, boxes of art supplies, and dozens of canvases covered in drop cloths. Andre helped her uncover them, and suddenly Rochelle was staring at pieces of herself she'd forgotten existed. Bold strokes of color. Abstract shapes that represented emotions rather than objects. A portrait of her mother that captured both her strength and her sadness. A self-portrait where her face was dissolving into flowers and thorns. Pieces that were raw and honest and completely unmarketable. These are incredible, Andre breathed, moving from canvas to canvas. Why did you stop making these? Because no one wanted them. Did you want to make them? The question was simple and devastating. Yes. God, yes. I felt alive when I painted like this. Like I was translating my soul onto canvas. Then why did you stop? Because I needed to eat. Because I needed to pay rent. Because being an artist who starves in a garret is romantic in movies but miserable in real life. Andre nodded thoughtfully. But you're not starving now. Christopher's rich. You have access to money. So why aren't you painting? Rochelle realized she didn't have an answer. The excuse that had seemed so solid for years crumbled under gentle questioning. I'm scared, she finally admitted. What if I start painting again and it's not good? What if the part of me that made these is dead? What if I've lost it by ignoring it for so long? Only one way to find out, Andre said. He pulled out a canvas and found a box of old paints. Paint something. Right now. Here? In a storage unit? Why not? No one's watching. No one's judging. Just you and the canvas. Rochelle's hands trembled as she opened the paint tubes. Some had dried out, but enough were still usable. She didn't have an easel, so Andre held the canvas against the wall. And then, for the first time in years, Rochelle painted what she felt instead of what would sell. She painted the panic attack. The fear. The feeling of drowning in silk and diamonds. The moment of breaking free. Her hands moved almost without her permission, mixing colors, creating shapes that shouldn't work together but somehow did. She lost track of time, lost track of everything except the conversation between her hands and the canvas. When she finally stepped back, she was breathing hard, covered in paint, and more alive than she'd felt in years. That, Andre said quietly, is what you should be doing with your life. Rochelle stared at the painting. It was rough, chaotic, imperfect. And it was completely, utterly honest. I don't know how, she whispered. Figure it out. That's what life is. Figuring it out as you go. Andre checked his phone. It's 3 a.m. Want to get really terrible diner food. They ended up at a 24-hour diner, eating pancakes and drinking coffee that was even worse than the hotel's machine. Rochelle couldn't remember the last time she'd had this much fun. Everything with Christopher was orchestrated, planned, Instagram-worthy. This was real. Messy. Human. Can I ask you something? Rochelle said, drowning her pancakes in syrup. Why are you being so nice to me? I'm basically a spoiled rich girl having a crisis. You're not spoiled, Andre said. You're lost. There's a difference. And I'm nice to you because you're easy to be nice to. You listen. You're curious about other people. You don't treat me like I'm invisible because I'm a janitor. He paused. Most people look through me. You see me. That's rare. You see me too, Rochelle said quietly. That's even rarer. Their eyes met across the sticky diner table and something passed between them. Not attraction exactly, though there was that too. Recognition. Like two people who'd been speaking different languages their whole lives and suddenly found someone who understood. Rochelle's phone buzzed. A text from Christopher. Feeling better? Coming home from Bali tomorrow. Missed you. Let's sign those papers and make it official. The real world crashed back. She wasn't just some woman having late-night conversations with a kind janitor. She was engaged, legally if not technically married, to one of the richest men in the city. She lived in a penthouse. She wore clothes that cost more than Andre made in a month. I should go, Rochelle said, the spell breaking. Yeah. Andre signaled for the check. But Rochelle? Don't stop painting. Whatever happens, don't give that up again. As the rideshare drove her back to the penthouse, Rochelle looked at her paint-stained hands and realized something terrifying. She didn't want to go home. She didn't want to see Christopher. She didn't want to sign the papers and make it official. She wanted to be in that storage unit, painting her truth. She wanted to be in that diner, eating terrible pancakes. She wanted to be with someone who saw her, really saw her, not just the ornament she'd become. But wanting something and having the courage to reach for it were two very different things. Christopher returned from Bali with a tan, expensive gifts, and a new urgency about finalizing their marriage. He burst into the penthouse with his suitcases and immediately pulled Rochelle into a hug that felt more possessive than affectionate. I missed you so much, he said, though he'd barely called during the trip. Are you feeling better? Much better, Rochelle lied. The fake food poisoning had given her 3 weeks of freedom, but now reality was back. Good. Because we need to sign those papers. My lawyer's been asking, and it looks suspicious that we haven't made it official yet. Christopher set down his bags and pulled out a leather folder. I brought them with me. We can do it right now. Rochelle's heart raced. Right now? Why not? Unless there's a reason to wait. There were 1,000 reasons to wait. But Rochelle couldn't voice any of them without revealing the truth. She didn't want to sign. She didn't want to be married to him. She'd spent 3 weeks realizing that the life she'd agreed to was slowly suffocating her. Can we wait until tomorrow? I'm still a bit tired. Christopher's jaw tightened. Rochelle, what's going on? You've been acting strange for weeks. First the panic attack, then the food poisoning, now you're hesitating about paperwork. Do you have doubts? Yes, she wanted to scream. So many doubts. No, she said instead. I'm just overwhelmed. Everything's happened so fast. We've been engaged for a year. I know. You're right. Tomorrow. I promise. Christopher studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Fine. Tomorrow. But Rochelle, if something's bothering you, you need to tell me. We're partners now. We don't keep secrets. Partners. The word should have felt warm and inclusive. Instead, it felt like a business term. Which, Rochelle was realizing, was exactly what their relationship was. A merger, not a marriage. That night, while Christopher slept, Rochelle slipped out again. She knew it was risky, knew he might wake up and find her gone. But she needed to see Andre. Needed to talk to someone who didn't make her feel like she was crazy for having doubts. The hotel was quiet at 2 a.m. Andre was in the basement, sorting through supplies, his radio playing soft jazz. He looked up when she appeared, and concern immediately crossed his face. You okay? He's back. He wants me to sign the marriage papers tomorrow. Make it official. Rochelle sank onto a step, suddenly exhausted. I don't know what to do. Andre set down the box he was carrying and sat beside her, careful to maintain a respectful distance. What do you want to do? I want to not sign them. I want to walk away. But I don't know how. My mother will be devastated. Christopher will be humiliated. Everyone will say I'm crazy for leaving a billionaire. And maybe they're right. Maybe I am crazy. You're not crazy for wanting to be happy. But what if I'm never happy? What if this is as good as it gets? What if I walk away from Christopher and end up alone and miserable and wishing I'd been smart enough to appreciate what I had? That's fear talking, Andre said gently. Fear of the unknown. But staying in a situation that makes you miserable just because you're afraid of what comes next isn't brave. It's just a different kind of prison. Rochelle turned to look at him. Really look at him. Andre had such an honest face. No pretense, no performance. Just authentic human kindness. How did you get so wise? She asked. I'm not wise. I just learned the hard way that you can't live your life for other people. I spent years angry at my mom for her choices, angry at the world for failing her. That anger was eating me alive. My therapist helped me understand that everyone's doing the best they can with what they've got. My mom wasn't trying to hurt me. She was trying to survive her pain. Once I understood that, I could forgive her. And once I forgave her, I could start living for myself instead of for her memory. I don't know how to live for myself, Rochelle admitted. I've spent my whole life living for my mother's dreams, then for Christopher's expectations. I don't even know what my own dreams are anymore. You do, Andre said. You painted them. In that storage unit. That canvas was full of your dreams. He was right. The painting had been about freedom, about authenticity, about breaking free from expectations. It was her soul speaking when her voice couldn't. But how do I get from here to there? I can't just walk away from Christopher with nothing. I don't have a job. I don't even have my own apartment anymore. I gave up my lease when I moved into his place. You don't have to figure it all out at once, Andre said. But you do have to take the first step. And the first step is being honest. With him. With your mother. With yourself. They sat in silence for a while, the jazz music filling the space. Rochelle felt something solidifying inside her. Not certainty exactly, but determination. She'd been passive in her own life for too long. It was time to take control even if she was scared. Thank you, she said finally. For being my friend. For listening without judgment. That's what friends do, Andre said, smiling. But Rochelle? Whatever you decide, make sure it's your decision. Not mine, not your mom's, not Christopher's. Yours. When Rochelle got back to the penthouse, the sun was starting to rise. She expected Christopher to be asleep, but instead, he was sitting in the living room, still dressed, his face thunderous. "Where were you?" he demanded. "I went for a walk." "At 2 in the morning? Again?" Christopher stood, and for the first time Rochelle saw real anger in his eyes. "Who were you with?" "No one. I was just walking." "Don't lie to me." Christopher pulled out his phone and showed her something. A photo of her entering the Meridian Hotel. "I had a feeling something was going on. I hired someone to follow you. You've been going to that hotel almost every night. So I'll ask again, who were you with?" Rochelle felt her stomach drop. "You hired someone to follow me? Answer the question. Are you having an affair?" "No. I've been talking to a friend." "A friend? What friend?" "I know all your friends. His name is Andre. He works at the hotel. And before you jump to conclusions, we're just talking. That's it. He's been helping me think through some things." Christopher's face went from angry to incredulous. "You've been sneaking out at night to talk to a janitor? Are you serious?" The way he said janitor with such disdain made Rochelle's blood boil. "He's a person. A kind, thoughtful person who actually listens to me." "I listen to you." "No, you don't. You tell me what I need. You tell me what's best for me. You orchestrate my life like I'm a doll in your perfect dollhouse. But you never ask what I want. You never see me as anything other than an accessory to your life." The words came out in a rush, months of suppressed feelings pouring out. Christopher stepped back as if she'd slapped him. "I've given you everything," he said, his voice cold. "Anything you could possibly want. Except freedom. Except autonomy. Except the chance to be myself. This is ridiculous. You're being hysterical." "Don't call me hysterical. I'm being honest for the first time in this relationship." Christopher's face hardened. "Fine. If you want honesty, here it is. I'm going to my lawyer's office this morning. You have until noon to meet me there and sign those papers. If you don't show up, I'm calling off the wedding. The engagement will be over. You'll move out of my penthouse. And you'll be on your own." He grabbed his keys. "Noon, Rochelle. Make your choice." He left, and the door slammed behind him with a finality that echoed through the empty penthouse. Rochelle sank to the floor, her whole body shaking. This was it. The moment of truth. In 4 hours she had to decide the rest of her life. She pulled out her phone and called the one person who might understand. "Tamara? I need your help. Can you come over?" Tamara arrived 30 minutes later with coffee and tissues. She listened to the whole story, then hugged Rochelle tight. "You know what you need to do," Tamara said. "You've known for weeks. But what if I'm wrong? Then you'll be wrong. But at least you'll be free." At 11:30, Rochelle made her decision. She called Christopher's lawyer's office and left a message. Then she started packing. Tamara helped Rochelle pack her belongings into suitcases. It was strange how little of the penthouse actually belonged to her. Most of the clothes were gifts from Christopher. Most of the jewelry was his family's. Her actual possessions fit into 3 suitcases. Some clothes, her art supplies, photographs, books. "Where will you go?" Tamara asked, folding a blue sweater. "I don't know. I'll figure it out." Her phone rang. Christopher's mother. Rochelle let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Her own mother this time. She silenced it. At 11:45, with the suitcases packed and waiting by the door, Rochelle sat on the couch and let herself feel everything she'd been pushing down. Fear, relief, terror, freedom. They all mixed together in a cocktail of emotion that left her breathless. "You don't have to do this," Tamara said softly. "If you want to go to that lawyer's office and sign those papers, I'll support you. But I don't think you want to. And I think if you sign them, a part of you will die. Maybe not today, maybe not even this year. But eventually you'll wake up and realize you've lived your whole life for other people and never once for yourself." Rochelle nodded. Her friend was right. At noon she was supposed to be at the lawyer's office. Instead, she was in a rideshare heading away from the life she'd built and toward something unknown. Her phone exploded with calls and texts. Christopher. His mother. Her mother. The wedding planner. Everyone panicking because Rochelle wasn't where she was supposed to be, doing what she was supposed to do. She turned off her phone. Tamara had offered her guest room and Rochelle gratefully accepted. She spent the rest of the day in a daze, unpacking her few belongings, trying to process what she'd just done. That evening she finally turned her phone back on. Hundreds of messages waited. Most were variations of the same theme. How could you? What were you thinking? You've ruined everything. But there was one message that was different. From Andre. Heard through the hotel grapevine that you didn't show up to sign papers. Checking if you're okay. No pressure to respond. Just wanted you to know I'm thinking of you. Rochelle typed and deleted several responses before settling on, I'm okay. Scared but okay. Thank you for everything. His response came immediately, proud of you. That took real courage. Over the next 3 days, Rochelle existed in a strange limbo. She stayed at Tamara's, avoiding calls from her mother, deflecting texts from Christopher that ranged from angry to pleading. She'd made her choice, but she was still processing what that choice meant. On the 4th day, her mother showed up at Tamara's apartment. We need to talk, Donna said, her face a mask of barely controlled fury. Tamara disappeared into her bedroom, giving them privacy. Rochelle braced herself for the confrontation she'd been dreading. Do you have any idea what you've done? Donna started. Christopher is humiliated. His family is threatening legal action. The press is having a field day. And for what? So you can throw a tantrum like a spoiled child? It wasn't a tantrum, Mom. I couldn't marry him. Why not? Give me one good reason. Because I don't love him. Because I was drowning. Because I deserve to be happy, not just comfortable. Happy? Donna laughed bitterly. Happiness is a fairy tale, Rochelle. This is the real world. And in the real world, you don't throw away a billionaire because you're not happy enough. Is that what you think? That I'm being spoiled and ungrateful? Yes. That's exactly what I think. The words stung even though Rochelle had expected them. Then you don't know me at all. I know I raised you better than this. I know I sacrificed everything so you could have opportunities one never had. And I know you just threw away the biggest opportunity any girl like us could ever get. Girls like us, Rochelle repeated. You keep saying that. Girls from nothing. Girls who should be grateful for whatever scraps the rich throw at us. Girls who should know their place. Don't twist my words. I'm not. I'm finally understanding them. You wanted me to marry Christopher because you wanted me to escape poverty. But I'm not you, Mom. I don't need to escape. I need to find myself. That's privileged nonsense. Finding yourself is a luxury. Maybe. But it's a luxury I'm taking. I'm sorry if that disappoints you. I'm sorry I'm not living the life you dreamed for me. But it's my life. It has to be. Donna stood, her purse clutched tight in her hands. When you're struggling to pay rent and wishing you'd made a different choice, don't come crying to me. You made your bed. Lie in it. She left without saying goodbye. Rochelle sank onto the couch, tears streaming down her face. She'd expected her mother to be upset, but the coldness, the complete lack of understanding, cut deeper than she'd imagined. Tamara emerged from the bedroom and wrapped her arms around Rochelle. She'll come around. Eventually. What if she doesn't? Then she doesn't. But you still did the right thing. Over the following week, Rochelle started to build a new life. She got a cheap studio apartment in a neighborhood that would have horrified Christopher. She took a job at a community arts center, teaching children after school. The pay was terrible compared to what she could have had as Christopher's wife, but the work felt meaningful. She also went back to the storage unit and retrieved her old paintings. She set up a corner of her tiny apartment as a studio and started painting again. Not for money. Not for galleries. Just for herself. And every few days she'd text Andre. Simple updates. Small victories. Struggles. He always responded with encouragement, never judgment. 3 weeks after leaving Christopher, Rochelle finally agreed to meet him in person. He suggested a neutral location, a coffee shop neither of them usually frequented. Christopher looked different. Tired. Less polished. He stood when she entered, and for a moment, neither of them knew what to say. Thank you for meeting me, Christopher finally said. They sat. Rochelle ordered tea she didn't really want, just to have something to do with her hands. I've been thinking a lot, Christopher said. About what you said. About how I never really listened to you. About how I orchestrated your life. He paused. You were right. Rochelle wasn't sure she'd heard correctly. What? You were right. I did treat you like an accessory. I did make decisions for you. I never asked what you wanted because I assumed I knew what was best. He looked at her, really looked at her, and she saw something she'd never seen before. Genuine regret. I'm sorry. Christopher. I'm not asking you to come back. I know that's over. But I wanted you to know that I've started therapy. I'm working on understanding why I need to control everything and everyone around me. And I wanted to apologize for my part in making you feel trapped. Rochelle felt tears building. This was the conversation she'd needed months ago. Thank you. That means more than you know. Can I ask you something? Christopher said. Are you happy? Now. Rochelle thought about her tiny apartment, her job that barely paid her bills, her mother who wasn't speaking to her. Then she thought about painting at 3 in the morning because she felt inspired, about her students at the art center who looked at her like she hung the moon, about the freedom to make her own choices, even when they were hard. "Yeah," she said. "I am." Christopher nodded. "Then I'm glad. You deserve to be happy." He paused. "For what it's worth, I think I'm going to be happier too. Once I figure out who I am without the performance." They talked for another hour, and for the first time since they'd met, they had a real conversation. No performance, no pretense. Just two people who'd realized they wanted different things. When they parted, Christopher hugged her. "Thank you for teaching me something important." "What's that?" "That comfort and happiness aren't the same thing." As Rochelle walked home through her new neighborhood, dodging street vendors and kids playing basketball, she thought about Andre's words from weeks ago. Her mother had said the same thing. Comfort and happiness aren't the same thing. She'd chosen happiness. It was messier, scarier, and came with way less money. But it was hers. 6 weeks after leaving Christopher, Rochelle had settled into her new life. Her studio apartment was cramped but felt more like home than the penthouse ever had. She decorated with her own paintings, bought furniture from thrift stores, and learned to cook actual meals instead of ordering from expensive restaurants. The art center job was challenging but rewarding. She taught painting to kids from low-income families, many of whom reminded her of herself at that age. Hungry for creativity but unsure if they were allowed to want it, she pushed them to paint their feelings, their dreams, their truth. And slowly she watched them blossom. Her mother still wasn't speaking to her. The silence hurt, but Rochelle understood it. Her mother had sacrificed too much, dreamed too hard, to watch her daughter choose struggle over security. Maybe someday Donna would understand. Maybe she wouldn't. Rochelle was learning to make peace with both possibilities. She kept in touch with Andre through texts and occasional coffee meetups. Their friendship had deepened into something comfortable and real. He celebrated her small victories and listened when she struggled. But they'd maintained appropriate boundaries. Andre never pushed for more, and Rochelle wasn't ready for more. Until one night in late autumn when everything changed. Rochelle was leaving the art center after an evening class when her phone rang. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Hello? Rochelle Adams? This is Memorial Hospital. You're listed as emergency contact for Donna Adams. Your mother's been in an accident." The world tilted. "What happened?" "She was hit by a car. She's stable but unconscious. Can you come?" Rochelle ran the 6 blocks to the hospital, her heart pounding. Despite everything, despite the silence between them, the thought of losing her mother was unbearable. Donna looked small in the hospital bed, hooked up to machines, her face bruised. Rochelle sank into the chair beside her and took her mother's hand. "I'm here, Mom," she whispered. "I'm here." Over the next 3 days, Rochelle barely left the hospital. She called Tamara, who brought her clothes and food. She notified Donna's workplace and arranged for someone to water her plants. And she sat by her mother's bed, holding her hand, praying for her to wake up. On the 3rd day, Andre showed up. "How did you know I was here?" Rochelle asked. "Tamara told me. I wanted to check on you." He held up a bag. "I brought you actual food, not hospital cafeteria sadness." They ate sandwiches in the waiting room, and Rochelle told him everything. About the accident, about the guilt she felt for the way they'd left things, about her fear that her mother might die without them reconciling. "She's going to be okay," Andre said with quiet certainty. "And when she wakes up, you'll have the chance to talk. Really talk. What if she still doesn't understand? What if she wakes up and we're right back where we were? Then you'll deal with it. But at least you'll have tried." Andre stayed for hours, keeping Rochelle company, making her laugh with stories from work. As evening fell and visiting hours ended, he stood to leave. "Thank you," Rochelle said, "for being here. You didn't have to come." "I know. But I wanted to." He hesitated, then added, "Rochelle, I need to tell you something. And I know the timing is terrible, but if I don't say it now, I might never say it." "What is it?" "I care about you. A lot. More than just as a friend. I have for a while now. But I didn't want to say anything while you were figuring out your life. I didn't want to be another complication. But seeing you here, watching you be so strong for your mom, I realized I don't want to keep pretending I only want friendship." Rochelle's breath caught. She'd been so focused on survival, on rebuilding, that she hadn't let herself think about relationships or romance. But hearing Andre's words, she realized the feelings were mutual. "I care about you too," she said quietly. "But I'm a mess right now. I'm broke, my mother's in the hospital, I'm barely keeping it together. I know. And I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know. When you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'm here. He left, and Rochelle sat with his words, feeling something warm bloom in her chest despite the fear and exhaustion. That night, her mother woke up. Rochelle? Donna's voice was weak, confused. I'm here, Mom. Don't try to talk. You were in an accident, but you're going to be okay. Donna's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. For what? For what I said. For being so hard on you. When that car hit me, all I could think was that if I died, we'd never fix this. And I couldn't die with you thinking I didn't love you. I know you love me, Mom. No, you don't. Not the way I should have shown you. Donna squeezed Rochelle's hand weakly. I was so focused on giving you the security I never had that I forgot to ask if it was what you needed. I pushed you toward Christopher because I was scared you'd end up like me, struggling and alone. But you're not me. And you deserve to choose your own path even if it scares me. Rochelle sobbed, resting her head on her mother's bed. I was so afraid you'd never understand. I'm trying to. It's hard to let go of dreams I've carried for so long. But I'm trying. They talked for hours until the nurses insisted Donna needed rest. It wasn't a perfect resolution. They still had different views on security versus happiness. But it was a start. It was forgiveness. It was love trying to find its way through fear. Over the next week, as Donna recovered, Rochelle visited every day. They talked about real things. Donna shared stories about Rochelle's father that she'd never told before. How he'd been charming but weak, how she'd loved him despite knowing he'd leave. How that love had shaped all her fears about security. I didn't want you to love someone who couldn't provide, Donna admitted. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe stability isn't everything. What made you change your mind? Donna smiled weakly. That nurse, the one who's been so kind to me? Her husband works in maintenance. She told me they barely make ends meet most months. But the way she talks about him, the light in her eyes. That's something Christopher never put in yours. It was a small admission, but it meant everything. On the day Donna was discharged, Rochelle brought her home and made sure she had everything she needed. As she was leaving, Donna called her back. That friend of yours. The one who's been texting you. Andre? Rochelle had been showing her mother funny memes Andre sent to cheer her up. Yeah. He makes you smile the way you used to smile when you were little. Like you're really happy, not just performing happiness. Don't let him slip away because you're scared. 2 days later, Rochelle called Andre. Can we meet? They met at a park, sitting on a bench overlooking a pond where ducks paddled in lazy circles. My mom woke up, Rochelle said. We talked. Really talked. And I realized something. What's that? I've been so focused on choosing between security and freedom that I forgot there might be a third option. Being secure enough to be free. Being free enough to be happy. And maybe, if I'm lucky, being with someone who sees me for who I really am. Andre took her hand, and for the first time in months, Rochelle felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. I'd like to try this, she said. If you still want to. I've wanted to since the first time you cried in that hallway, Andre admitted. But Rochelle, I need you to know what you're getting into. I'm still in school. I work as a janitor. I live in a tiny apartment and eat ramen for dinner more nights than not. I can't give you the life Christopher could. Good, Rochelle said. Because I don't want that life. I want this one. The messy, uncertain, real one. With you. He kissed her, soft and gentle, and Rochelle felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not just happiness. Hope. The next 6 months were a blur of change and growth. Rochelle moved into a slightly bigger apartment, still modest but with enough space for a proper art studio. She spent every spare moment painting, creating pieces that were raw and honest and completely unmarketable by conventional standards. She and Andre took things slow, building their relationship on a foundation of friendship and mutual respect. They had date nights at cheap restaurants and movie theaters showing second-run films. They cooked dinners in his tiny kitchen and took long walks through neighborhoods they couldn't afford to live in but enjoyed exploring. It was nothing like the luxury she'd had with Christopher, and it was infinitely better. Andre finished another semester of his social work degree, and Rochelle attended his online graduation ceremony, cheering from her laptop. He was halfway to his goal now, and his determination inspired her. The art center job remained fulfilling but didn't pay enough to live on comfortably. Rochelle took on extra work doing murals for local businesses and selling her safer pieces at weekend art markets. It was hustle and struggle, but it was hers. Her relationship with her mother improved slowly. Donna still worried about money and security, but she made an effort to understand Rochelle's choices. She even came to one of Rochelle's art center exhibitions, watching her daughter teach a class about abstract expressionism to a group of enthusiastic 10-year-olds. "You're good at this," Donna admitted afterward. "Really good. Those kids adore you." It was a small victory, but Rochelle treasured it. Then one Thursday evening, everything changed again. Rochelle was cleaning up after a class when the art center director, Mrs. Patterson, called her into the office. Rochelle's stomach dropped. Had she done something wrong? "Rochelle, sit down," Mrs. Patterson said, smiling. "I have some news." "Good news or bad news?" "Good news. Very good news. We've received a grant application. Someone wants to donate money to expand our programs. Specifically, they want to fund a full program of art classes for underprivileged youth. And they've requested that you run it." Rochelle's mind raced. "Wait, what? How much money?" $500,000 to start, with potential for more funding if the program succeeds. Rochelle felt dizzy. "That's incredible. Who's the donor?" Mrs. Patterson pulled out a letter. "Someone named Christopher Whitmore. Do you know him?" The room seemed to tilt. Christopher. After all these months, he was reaching out, not with demands or recriminations, but with help. Genuine, meaningful help. "I do know him," Rochelle said slowly, "but I don't understand why he'd do this. The letter says he wants to support programs that help people find their authentic path in life. He specifically mentioned your work with the children and how it represents the kind of community investment he wants to make." Mrs. Patterson leaned forward. "Rochelle, this is a huge opportunity. With this funding, we could double our class offerings, hire more teachers, maybe even open a second location. And he wants you to lead the initiative." That evening, Rochelle sat in her apartment, staring at her phone. She needed to call Christopher to thank him, to understand why he was doing this. But she was nervous. They'd parted on good terms months ago, but this felt different. This felt like something more. She called. "Rochelle," Christopher answered on the second ring. "I was wondering when I'd hear from you. You donated $500,000 to the art center. Why?" "Because I've been in therapy, like I told you. And I've been working on being less of a controlling person and more of someone who uses his resources to actually help people." He paused. "And because I saw a video of you teaching those kids. It was on the center's website. The way they looked at you, the joy in their faces. That's the real you. The one I never let flourish. I wanted to support that." "Christopher, this is incredibly generous, but I can't accept it if there are strings attached." "No strings. I promise. This is not about trying to win you back or control your life. This is about making amends. You showed me that I was living wrong. You had the courage to walk away from security to find yourself. That inspired me to do the same." "You walked away from security? You're a billionaire." Christopher laughed. "Not the money. The performance. I stopped doing things because they looked good and started doing things because they felt right. I'm actually happy now, Rochelle. For the first time in years. And I have you to thank for that. So thank you. And please accept the grant. Use it to help those kids the way you've helped yourself." Rochelle felt tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, Christopher. This means everything. You deserve it. You always did." After they hung up, Rochelle called Andre. "Can you come over? Something amazing just happened, and I need to tell you in person." 20 minutes later, they were sitting on her couch and she was telling him everything. About the grant, about Christopher's call, about the opportunity to expand the program she loved. "This is incredible," Andre said, pulling her into a hug. "You're going to change so many lives." "But here's the thing," Rochelle said, pulling back to look at him. "I want you to be part of it. When you finish your degree next year, I want to hire you. We could integrate social services into the art program. Help kids not just with creativity but with their whole lives. What do you think?" Andre's eyes widened. "You'd want to work together?" "More than anything. You inspired me to find my path. Let's build something meaningful together." He kissed her, and in that moment, Rochelle realized something profound. She'd started this journey thinking she had to choose between security and happiness, between practical love and real love, between other people's dreams and her own. But the truth was more complex. She didn't have to choose. She could build a life that was both stable and authentic, both practical and passionate, both independent and connected. It wouldn't be perfect. There would still be struggles and bills and complications. But it would be real. And it would be hers. Over the next few weeks, Rochelle worked with Mrs. Patterson to develop the new program. They hired 2 more teachers, expanded class offerings, and began outreach to schools in low-income neighborhoods. The response was overwhelming. Parents lined up to enroll their kids. Teachers praised the program. Local news covered the story. And in all the chaos and excitement, Rochelle kept painting. Her wild, emotional pieces that no gallery wanted. She painted them for herself as a reminder of where she'd come from and where she was going. One Saturday she was setting up at an art market when an older woman stopped at her booth. She spent a long time studying Rochelle's paintings, the abstract explosions of color and emotion. "These are extraordinary," the woman finally said. "They're so honest, so raw. Thank you. They're not for everyone. The best art never is." The woman pulled out a business card. "I run a gallery downtown. We specialize in contemporary emotional expressionism. Would you be interested in showing your work?" Rochelle stared at the card. "Seriously? Seriously? These pieces speak to something real. There's a market for authentic emotion, even if it's not the traditional market." The woman smiled. "Call me. Let's set up a show." After she left, Rochelle stood there in shock. Andre, who'd been helping her set up, wrapped his arms around her from behind. "See," he whispered in her ear. "Good things happen when you're brave enough to be yourself." That night, as they walked home through the city, hand in hand, Rochelle thought about how far she'd come. 6 months ago, she'd been standing at an altar, unable to breathe, trapped in a life that looked perfect but felt empty. Now she was struggling to pay rent, working constantly, building something from nothing. And she'd never been happier. The months flew by in a whirlwind of activity. Rochelle's art program expanded beyond anything she'd imagined. With Christopher's grant, they opened a satellite location in another underserved neighborhood. Enrollment tripled. Local businesses started sponsoring scholarships. The mayor visited and praised their community impact. Rochelle's personal art career took off too. The gallery show was a success. Critics praised her emotional rawness. She sold several pieces for more money than she'd ever made with her safe, marketable art. It felt like validation of everything she'd chosen. Her relationship with Andre deepened. They moved in together, finding a larger apartment they could just barely afford between her growing income and his student loans. It was messy and chaotic and perfect. They cooked dinners together, stayed up late talking about their dreams, supported each other through hard days. Andre graduated with his social work degree in May, and Rochelle threw him a surprise party with all his friends from school. Donna came too, bringing her famous coconut cake and actually hugging Andre, which felt like a milestone. "You make my daughter happy," Donna told him. "That's all I ever really wanted for her." The art center hired Andre as their first full-time social worker, integrating support services into the program. He worked with families, connecting them to resources, helping parents as much as their children. It was everything he dreamed of. Life was good. Better than good. Rochelle felt like she'd finally found her place in the world. Then one August afternoon she got a call from an unknown number. "Rochelle Adams? This is Patricia Monroe from Monroe Philanthropic Foundation. Do you have a moment?" Rochelle stepped outside the center, curious. "Sure, what's this about?" "We've been following your work with the Arts Center. Your program is exactly the kind of community-based initiative we support. We'd like to offer you a significant grant to expand your work. Specifically, we'd like to help you open your own independent art center." Rochelle's heart raced. "My own center? With full control over programming, staffing, and direction. We're talking about a 5-year grant of $2 million. We believe in investing in people who are making real differences in their communities." Rochelle nearly dropped her phone. $2 million. Her own center. Complete creative control. It was more than she'd ever dreamed possible. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll consider it. We'll send you the full proposal. Look it over, discuss it with your team and let us know. We'd love to have you as a partner in this work." After the call ended, Rochelle stood on the sidewalk, trying to process what had just happened. A year ago, she'd been engaged to a billionaire, financially set for life. She'd walked away from that security to find herself. And now, through her own work and choices, she'd found a different kind of security. One she'd earned. One that felt meaningful. She called Andre immediately. "Can you meet me at the coffee shop? Something incredible just happened." An hour later they were sitting in their favorite booth and she was telling him everything. Andre listened, his expression moving from surprise to pride to something more complicated. "This is amazing," he said, taking her hands. "You deserve this. You've worked so hard. We've worked hard. I couldn't have done this without you. Still, this is your achievement. Your dream." He paused. "But I have to ask, what does this mean for us? For the center where we work now?" Rochelle had been thinking about that. "I don't want to leave the center high and dry. But this grant would let me do so much more. We could serve more communities, develop better programs, pay teachers actual living wages. And I want you to be my partner in it. Co-director. Full equal say in how we run things. Rochelle, that's your dream. I can't. It's our dream. Don't you see? We've been building toward this together. Your social work expertise, my art background. We make a good team. Andre smiled, but she could see the wheels turning. Let me think about it. This is huge, and I want to make sure we're making the right choice for the right reasons. That evening, Rochelle called her mother to share the news. Donna listened, then said something that surprised Rochelle. I'm proud of you, baby. Not because of the money, but because you found your purpose. You took a risk and it paid off. That takes courage I'm not sure I ever had. Mom, you had plenty of courage. You raised me alone, worked multiple jobs, never gave up. That was necessity, not courage. What you did, walking away from Christopher, building this life from scratch, that's different. That's choosing to be brave. It was the most profound compliment her mother had ever given her. 2 weeks later, as Rochelle was reviewing the grant proposal with Andre and Mrs. Patterson from the Current Center, someone knocked on the door. Rochelle looked up to see Christopher standing there, looking slightly uncomfortable. I'm sorry to interrupt, he said. Can I talk to you for a minute, Rochelle? They stepped outside. Christopher looked different from when she'd seen him last. More relaxed. Genuinely happy. I heard about the Monroe Foundation grant. Congratulations. Thank you. And thank you again for your original grant. None of this would have happened without your support. Actually, I need to tell you something. Christopher looked sheepish. The Monroe Foundation grant? I recommended you for it. I sit on their board now. I've been trying to use my money and influence to actually help people, and your work is exactly what we should be supporting. Rochelle stared at him. You did this? Not entirely. They investigated your work independently. But yes, I brought your program to their attention. I hope that's okay. Okay? Christopher, this is going to change everything. But I don't understand. Why do you keep helping me? Christopher was quiet for a moment. Because you changed my life. You showed me that money and success don't mean anything if you're not living authentically. After you left, I started really examining my life. I was miserable, Rochelle. Rich and successful and absolutely miserable. So I started over. New therapist, new priorities, new life. I stopped trying to control everything and started actually living. He gestured behind him to the parking lot where a woman with warm brown skin and kind eyes waited by a car. That's my girlfriend, Angela. She's a public defender. Makes probably 1% of what I make. But she's real, she challenges me, and I'm actually happy for the first time in my life. Rochelle looked at the woman, who waved shyly. She's beautiful. Inside and out. Like you are. You deserve this grant, Rochelle. You deserve success that you built yourself, not success someone handed you. Christopher held out his hand. No hard feelings about how things ended? No hard feelings, Rochelle said, shaking his hand. I'm genuinely happy for you, Christopher. And thank you. For everything. After he left, Rochelle sat on the steps of the center trying to process everything. The grant, Christopher's involvement, the way life had circled back around. A year ago, she'd run from this man's wealth. Now, through his help and her own work, she was creating something more valuable than money. She was creating meaning. Andre came out and sat beside her. You okay? Better than okay. Ready? Ready for what? To say yes to the grant. To start our own center. To build something amazing together. She took his hand. Are you with me? Andre kissed her forehead. Always. That night, Rochelle drafted the acceptance letter. Then she pulled out a canvas and painted. Not the emotional abstract she'd become known for, but something different. A portrait of herself, standing at a crossroads, paths stretching in all directions, all of them bright with possibility. She titled it, The Choice. Not the choice between security and freedom, but the choice to keep choosing. To keep being brave. To keep building a life that mattered. 1 year later, Rochelle stood in front of a building that still took her breath away. The Arts and Community Wellness Center occupied a renovated warehouse in a neighborhood that had been overlooked for decades. The brick exterior was painted with a massive mural created by the kids from the program, an explosion of color and hope that could be seen from blocks away. Inside, the space was divided into art studios, counseling rooms, a computer lab, and a community gathering space. Every wall held artwork from program participants. Music drifted from somewhere, someone practicing piano. Laughter echoed from the youth room where teenagers worked on a collaborative sculpture. It was everything Rochelle had dreamed of and more. 5 minutes until the ceremony starts, Andre said, appearing at her side. He wore a green shirt and looked nervous. He always got nervous before public speaking. You're going to do great, Rochelle assured him, straightening his collar. The grand opening ceremony was packed. Community members, local politicians, donors, press, and most importantly the families they served. Mrs. Patterson from the original center sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Tamara was there with her new boyfriend. And in the third row, Rochelle saw her mother sitting next to Christopher and his girlfriend Angela. Seeing them all together, the old life and the new life, felt surreal and perfect. Andre opened the ceremony with a speech about community, support, and the power of seeing people as whole humans, not just their problems or their circumstances. He spoke about his mother, about the system that failed her, and about his determination to build something better. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Then it was Rochelle's turn. She walked to the podium, looking out at the sea of faces, and felt overwhelming gratitude. "A year and a half ago," she began, "I ran away from my own wedding. I stood at an altar in front of hundreds of people and realized I couldn't breathe. Not because weddings are scary, but because I was about to marry a life instead of a person. A life that looked perfect but felt empty." She saw Christopher in the audience, smiling encouragingly. "I ran away and hid in a janitor's closet, having a panic attack. And a kind man gave me water and asked me what I wanted. It was the simplest question and the hardest one I'd ever tried to answer. I didn't know what I wanted. I'd spent my whole life wanting what other people needed me to want." Rochelle paused, gathering her thoughts. "This center exists because I finally learned to answer that question. I wanted to create something meaningful. I wanted to help kids discover their authentic selves before the world told them who they should be. I wanted to prove that security and passion don't have to be opposites." She gestured around the space. "This building represents a lot of things. Art, community, support. But most of all, it represents choice. The choice to be brave. The choice to be yourself. The choice to build something that matters." Rochelle looked directly at her mother. "My mom taught me that security is survival. And she was right. But she also taught me, eventually, that surviving isn't the same as living. You can do both. You should do both. And that's what we're trying to teach here." After the speeches, they cut the ribbon and opened the doors. The community poured through, exploring the space, signing up for classes, meeting staff. Rochelle moved through the crowd, hugging students, thanking donors, answering questions. She was exhausted and exhilarated. Her mother found her in a quiet moment, pulling her aside. "I need to tell you something," Donna said, her eyes wet. "I was wrong. About Christopher, about security, about what you needed. Watching you now, seeing what you've built, I realize you were right to run. You were right to choose this path. And I'm sorry I made you feel like you couldn't." Rochelle hugged her mother tight. "You were doing your best with what you knew. We both were. You're so much braver than I ever was. I'm proud of you, baby. So proud." Christopher approached with Angela. "Incredible turnout. You should be proud." "I am. Thank you again for everything. For the original grant, for the recommendation to the Monroe Foundation, for believing in this vision." "Thank you," Christopher said, "for showing me what real success looks like. It's not money in the bank. It's this." He gestured to the bustling center, the smiling faces, the creative energy filling the space. "It's making a real difference. You taught me that." Angela squeezed Christopher's hand. "He talks about you all the time. About how you had the courage to walk away when it wasn't right. That inspired both of us." She smiled at Rochelle. "We're engaged now. But this time, I think he's doing it for the right reasons." "Congratulations," Rochelle said, meaning it completely. "I'm happy for you both." As evening fell and the crowd thinned, Andre found Rochelle sitting in the main studio, looking at the mural the kids had created. He sat beside her, taking her hand. "Tired? Exhausted? Happy? Overwhelmed? All of it." "We did it," Andre said softly. "We actually built this." "We did." Rochelle leaned her head on his shoulder. "Can I tell you something?" "Always." "A year and a half ago, when I ran away from that wedding, I thought I was just running away. I didn't realize I was running toward something. Toward this. Toward you. Toward myself." Andre kissed her temple. "Sometimes you have to run from the wrong thing to find the right thing." They sat in comfortable silence, watching through the windows as families left the center, kids clutching new art supplies, parents looking hopeful. This was success. Not wealth or status or Instagram-worthy moments, but real, meaningful impact. Later that night, back in their apartment, Rochelle pulled out a canvas. She'd been working on a series of paintings documenting her journey, from that first panic attack to this moment. This would be the final piece. She painted herself standing in front of the center, surrounded by light and color and possibility. But she wasn't alone. Andre stood beside her. Her mother was there. Tamara. Even Christopher and Angela, because they were part of the story too. All the people who'd helped her find her way. She titled it Beginning Again. Because that's what life was. A series of beginnings. Some you choose, some choose you, but all of them opportunities to become more yourself. As she painted, Andre came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. What are you working on? The end of the story. Or maybe the beginning of a new one. What happens in this new story? Rochelle smiled, adding a final brushstroke. We keep choosing. We keep building. We keep being brave. And we do it together. Sounds perfect. Not perfect, Rochelle corrected, turning in his arms to face him. Perfect is boring. Perfect is a cage. Real is messy and complicated and sometimes really hard. But it's ours. And that's better than perfect. Andre kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, in their modest apartment filled with thrift store furniture and original art, two people who'd found each other in a janitor's closet during a panic attack held each other close. Rochelle thought about the woman she'd been 18 months ago. Standing at an altar, unable to breathe, trapped in a life that looked perfect but felt empty. That woman would barely recognize who she was now. Confident. Purposeful. Happy in a way that went deeper than circumstance. She'd run away from a billionaire and toward a janitor. The world would call that crazy. But the world measured success in all the wrong ways. Real success, Rochelle had learned, was being able to breathe freely. Being able to sleep without anxiety. Being able to look in the mirror and recognize yourself. Being able to build something that mattered with people who saw you, really saw you, for who you truly were. She'd walked away from security and found something better. She'd walked away from a fairy tale and found something real. And she'd do it again in a heartbeat. 6 months later, on a quiet Saturday morning, Andre made breakfast while Rochelle painted in her studio corner. The radio played soft jazz. Sun streamed through the windows of their apartment, which they'd finally decorated the way they wanted, with art on every wall and plants on every surface. Andre's phone rang. After a brief conversation, he hung up with a strange expression. That was interesting, he said. What? Remember that family we've been working with at the center? The Johnsons? Dad lost his job, Mom's dealing with depression, kids were acting out. Of course. How are they? Dad just got hired at a tech company. Good job, benefits, the works. Mom's in therapy and doing better. And the daughter just got accepted to a summer art intensive on full scholarship. Andre's eyes were bright. They called to say thank you. They said our center saved their family. Rochelle felt tears prick her eyes. That's what it's all about. Yeah. Andre pulled her close. That's exactly what it's all about. Later that day they walked through their neighborhood, hand in hand, stopping at the corner store run by Mrs. Chin, who always gave them free coffee samples. They passed the community garden where volunteers grew vegetables for the local food bank. They waved at neighbors sitting on stoops, kids playing basketball in the street. This was their life. Modest. Real. Meaningful. Full of small kindnesses and genuine connections. Any regrets? Andre asked as they walked. Rochelle thought about it. About the penthouse she'd left behind. The financial security. The status. The life that could have been. Not even one, she said. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And she meant it. Every word. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is run away from the life everyone expects you to want and toward the life that makes you feel alive. Sometimes you have to choose happiness over comfort, authenticity over performance, real love over convenient love. And sometimes, when you're brave enough to make that choice, you discover that the life you build for yourself is infinitely better than any life someone could hand you. Rochelle had run from a billionaire and toward a janitor. But really she'd run toward herself. And that made all the difference.